I didn't drink regularly until I turned 21. By the time I turned 22, I was an alcoholic. Those of you who have been watching our channel for 2 years, whatever, you know that a while back I chose to become sober and not drink anymore. You don't realize why, and I'm going to tell you today. It happened really fast. I would say I was working at a bar and I used to sell alcohol, and we went through a really tough time and a traumatic event. And I started drinking to try to mask my emotions. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and I wasn't even diagnosed yet, and it was just, everything was going down the drain. I mean, it almost ruined our relationship.
I mean, we absolutely almost broke up. I mean, she was always chewing gum, so I would never smell it, and drinking coffee, so I would never smell it, and she would be picking up the little $1 bottles before she would go to work.
I knew I had a problem, but the pain that I was experiencing, it was like an outlet to not have to feel that intense pain. On May 26th, that story is going to come out, so you'll understand kind of the reasoning of what drove me to drinking. I would sneak all of it, and I just kept putting it off. Like the alcoholism, takes hold of you, I kept thinking, I'll deal with this later, or I've got control, I can do this, I just need it tonight. I just need it right now.
I didn't want to see the signs because I didn't want to think, first of all, I didn't think somebody that was our age could become an alcoholic. I know that's kind of ignorant, so I just couldn't fathom that Chrissy could be. When one of our close friends said, I think Chrissy's an alcoholic, and I was like, no way, maybe she drinks a lot, but
And when he first said that to me a year before I ended up in the hospital, I was very defensive, which is a telltale sign.
One night I went to work. I was working as a cover musician, and I got off work at about 10 o'clock, and I had an hour drive. And so as I got in the car, I called Chrissy, and I was like, hey, I'm on my way home. I'll be home in an hour. And I got home at about 11 p.m. at night, and I went and put my key in the lock, and it was deadbolt, which was really abnormal because we didn't really deadbolt the lock when she knew I was coming home. And so I started knocking on the door, and Chrissy didn't answer the phone, and she didn't come to the door, and so I kept calling, and it was just so unlike her. So the only thought I could have was that she's in the shower. So okay, so I'll just wait 15 minutes, and the dog was barking because I was banging on the door, and 15 minutes passed, and 30 minutes passed. I'm like, gosh, she's taking a really long shower. And then all of a sudden, that anxiety thing that just all of a sudden that something's bad just hits you, and it hits you so hard, and then there's nothing you can do to turn that around. Another 15 minutes passed, and I was so surprised that neighbors weren't coming out because I started screaming. So I called my mom, and she was like, all right, I'm coming over. And then I called the police, and the police were like, okay, we're sending someone over, we'll be there, shortly. So I kept pounding, and the dog was barking and barking, and then about 15 minutes later, the dog stopped barking. And when the dog stopped barking, it was I don't know, it was my world stopped. And the police weren't there, and that my adrenaline kicked in like I've never experienced before in my life. And I rammed my body against the door, and I broke the door down, and I ran inside, and I found Chrissy on the floor, unconscious, soaking wet. Her clothes were ripped, and she had blood all over her face. And my mom was a minute behind me, and so she comes running in, and she's screaming, and I'm screaming. I'm like, I don't know if she's even alive. So I tried to wake Chrissy up, and she wasn't waking up, and so I grabbed her and I picked her up, and I ran to my mom's car. And one thing that should be noted too for the story is that Chrissy had given up alcohol 3 or 4 weeks before that. And so I was under the impression that she was not drinking alcohol anymore. She told me that she was done drinking and that she wouldn't be drinking anymore because it was already causing a lot of problems with our relationship. And so I had no reason to think that was alcohol, because when you're with somebody and you trust them, and the person that you love, you want to believe what they say.
You didn't realize I had an alcohol problem so bad, so she thought it was not something like alcohol related.
Right. We get to the car, my mom's car. My mom takes us to the hospital, and we get to the hospital, and the nurses are like, is it alcohol? And I was like, no, she doesn't drink alcohol. And so like, okay, so we're gonna have to run like every single test. And then they took her into the emergency room.
Her mom thought I poisoned myself.
She thought she was like suicidal.
Turns out it wasn't blood. I'd mixed vodka and Crystal Light, and it was red, so it ended up going everywhere once I blacked out, and I had just been really upset, and at that point I was so deep in my trauma and not dealing with it in the right way. I was abusing, this drug and just trying to mask the pain and drink away the pain. That the last thing, I remember was like, I'll just finish this drink and then I'll be fine. And then the next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital surrounded by my loved ones who really thought that they had almost lost me.
Then the nurse said to me that she was 3 times the level in her blood with the alcohol, and that it could have killed her.
Well, my heartbeat slowed down, and my pulse, they were having trouble finding my pulse. I'm probably lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to be alive. I knew it was the brick wall that I had to hit. For me, it was finding a PTSD trauma specialist for therapy. If I hadn't done that, it was going to kill me. So if this problem that I was trying to so desperately escape, if it won, I was going to die. And so I said in the hospital bed, I promise you, I am never going to drink again. I chose Smart Recovery, which is like a secular, science-based addiction recovery group, and it's for all forms of addiction. Proud to say that I have been sober now for 1 year, 5 months, and 6 days. I've not had a sip of alcohol since December 13th, 2013.
I think it's important for us all to look in ourselves and say, why are we drinking? Is there a particular reason why I'm drinking so much? Am I unhappy? Am I insecure with a certain situation? And reevaluate ourselves as a society. I still drink alcohol, but I don't drink it as much as I did because I came to realize that maybe I had a little bit more of a problem than I like to admit. Like, why am I choosing to drink this alcohol at this particular time? It's because I'm insecure with the situation. I don't know how I'm going to feel, and so I'm going to rely on something else to make me not as, conscious for this particular situation.
Being sober is the best decision I ever made, and it was one that I had to make to survive. I wanted to tell you all this for a very, very, very long time. For 2 years now. And it feels amazing to get it off my chest. I want to take the shame and stigma out of alcoholism, and I've received so much support, and I'm so appreciative of that. But I'm going to put some links down below for Smart Recovery, or for those of you who are more faith-based, for Alcohol Anonymous, and some other resources for you. Stay tuned for May 26th when the story for the reason kind of why I became an alcoholic is going to come out. And we'll have more information for that. Thank you for always supporting me.
I think you're incredible. I'm the strongest human being I know.